The air in Kinshasa is thick with heat and anticipation. October 30th, 1974, 4 o'clock in the morning. 60,000 people packed into a stadium in the heart of Africa, chanting a name that has become a prayer. Ali, boma. Ali, boma. Ali, kill him. George Foreman stands in his corner, 25 years old, undefeated, a man who has never known what it feels like to be truly hurt in a boxing ring. His hands are weapons, his record is a graveyard. Joe Frazier, demolished in 2 rounds, Ken Norton, obliterated in 2. 40 wins, 37 knockouts. The experts don't give Muhammad Ali a chance. They don't see a fight coming, they see an execution. Across the ring stands Ali, 32 years old, older, slower, 3.5 years stolen from his prime by a government that didn't want him to speak. The world believes he's finished, that his time has passed, that his mouth has finally written a check his body cannot cash. But Ali is smiling, and that night, George Foreman didn't just lose a fight. He lost something he wouldn't understand for years. To understand what happened in Zaire, you have to understand what Muhammad Ali knew about power. Power is seductive. Power is obvious. Power makes men believe they are invincible, that the universe has granted them some fundamental advantage over other human beings. Power whispers in the ear of champions and tells them they are gods. And Ali understood this better than anyone alive. He had studied power his entire life. He had seen it in Sonny Liston's scowl, in the way a man's reputation could make opponents quit before the first bell rang. He had dismantled it twice, once with speed and once with will. He had watched power fail when it relied only on itself, when it forgot that boxing is not just violence, but geometry, not just strength, but time. By 1974, Ali was no longer the fastest man in boxing. His legs had lost that supernatural spring. His hands, though still quick, had slowed in measurable ways. But his mind had sharpened into something far more dangerous than youth or speed could ever be. He had become a student of limitation and patience. He had learned how to win, not by being better, but by making his opponent worse. George Foreman was the opposite. Foreman was raw, apocalyptic force. When he hit the heavy bag, it didn't swing. It folded. Training partners didn't spar with him. They survived him. His jab alone had more power behind it than most men's crosses. Watching him fight was like watching a building fall on someone, again and again, until there was nothing left standing. He destroyed Joe Frazier in Kingston, Jamaica. Frazier, the man who had beaten Ali, who had put Ali on his back with a left hook that still echoes through boxing history. Foreman knocked him down 6 times in 2 rounds. The fight was so brutal, so one-sided, that it felt less like competition and more like punishment. Frazier, one of the toughest men to ever lace gloves, looked small under Foreman's fists. Then came Ken Norton. Norton had broken Ali's jaw. Norton was strong, disciplined, methodical. Foreman put him on the canvas in the 2nd round and ended any conversation about who the real heavyweight champion was. The world looked at George Foreman and saw inevitability. Ali looked at him and saw exhaustion waiting to happen. There is a photograph taken in Zaire, weeks before the fight. Ali is surrounded by children, laughing, loose, radiant. Foreman is walking through the streets with his German shepherd, stone-faced, distant. The people chant Ali's name. They barely acknowledge Foreman. This was not an accident. Ali had arrived in Zaire weeks before the fight, not to train in isolation, but to become part of the place. He ran through the streets at dawn. He visited villages. He let people touch him, speak to him, see him not as a distant celebrity, but as someone who belonged to them. He understood that this fight would not be won in the gym alone. It would be won in the collective belief of 60,000 people whose energy would either lift him or crush him. Foreman trained in silence. He hit the bags. He ran. He prepared his body the way a blacksmith prepares a weapon. But he didn't prepare his mind for what Ali was building around him. In the weeks leading up to the fight, Ollie did something that seemed insane to everyone watching. He let Foreman hit him. Not in the ring. In his head. Ollie would talk about Foreman's power as if it was the most terrifying thing he'd ever faced. He'd say Foreman hit harder than anyone in history. He'd call him a monster. He'd play the role of the underdog so convincingly that even people who knew Ollie couldn't tell if he was scared or performing. But in private, with his trainer Angelo Dundee, with his corner, Ollie spoke differently. He talked about Foreman's stamina, about how much energy it takes to throw punches with that kind of force, about how a man who has never been tested for more than 2 rounds doesn't know what the 6th round feels like, about how confidence built on dominance is fragile when dominance no longer works. Ollie was laying a trap, and the bait was his own body. October 30th, 4 in the morning. The heat is suffocating. The bell rings. Foreman comes forward like a storm. He doesn't stalk. He doesn't probe. He attacks. His punches are meant to end things immediately. Ollie moves backward, but not with panic. With purpose, he circles. He covers. He lets Foreman throw. And then, in the second round, Ollie does something that makes Angelo Dundee scream from the corner. He goes to the ropes, not to escape, to stay. The ropes in Zaire are loose, almost elastic. Ollie leans back into them, his gloves high, his elbows tight, his body absorbing punishment but redirecting it, letting the ropes take the energy out of Foreman's punches. And while Foreman throws huge, winging, monstrous punches, Ollie talks to him. "Is that all you got, George? They told me you could hit? Show me something." Foreman punches. Ollie talks. Foreman punches harder. Ollie keeps talking. This is not bravado. This is surgery. What Ollie understands, what Foreman cannot see yet, is that violence costs. Every punch Foreman throws burns oxygen. Every missed punch burns belief. Foreman is used to fights ending quickly because when your power works, you don't need endurance. But Ollie is forcing Foreman into a different kind of fight, one where power alone is not enough, where you need patience and breath and the ability to think clearly. In the 5th round, Foreman's arms begin to slow. Not dramatically, not obviously, but Ollie feels it. The punches that came in the 1st round with the speed of freight trains are now arriving with the heaviness of something tired. Foreman is still dangerous, but he is no longer inevitable. In the 3rd round, Ollie opens up. He throws combinations off the ropes, fast and sharp, before retreating back into his defensive shell. Foreman marches forward, but now there is something different in his face. Not fear, confusion. This isn't how it's supposed to go. By the 5th round, Foreman is breathing hard. His punches are telegraphed. He's still swinging, still trying to land the one punch that will erase all of this frustration, but his body won't cooperate the way it always has. His arms feel heavy. His legs aren't beneath him the way they should be. Ollie leans in close during a clinch and whispers, "Is that it, champ?" There is a moment, late in the 8th round, where you can see it in Foreman's eyes. Not panic, not surrender, but recognition. The recognition that he has been played, that this entire fight has been a lesson he didn't know he was being taught. That Muhammad Ali has taken everything Foreman thought made him invincible and turned it into a weight he now has to carry. Ollie steps off the ropes. His hands come down. He stands in the center of the ring, and for the first time all night, he plants his feet and throws with bad intentions. A right hand lands clean on Foreman's jaw, then another. Then a left hook that snaps Foreman's head sideways. Foreman stumbles backward, not from the power of any single punch, but from the accumulation of 8 rounds spent chasing a ghost, 8 rounds of misviolence, 8 rounds of breathing in thick Zaire heat while trying to destroy a man who refused to be destroyed. Ollie throws a straight right hand, then a left hook, and Foreman's legs give out. He falls, not violently, almost gently. He hits the canvas, and for a moment, he tries to get up. His body wants to, his pride demands it. But his legs don't answer. The referee counts. Foreman pushes himself to one knee, The count reaches 8. Foreman tries to rise. The count reaches 10. The fight is over. Muhammad Ali has done what every expert said was impossible. He has beaten George Foreman, but more than that, he has taken the most feared puncher in the world and made him feel small. When George Foreman sits in his dressing room after the fight, he is not the same man who walked into the ring. There is no anger, no excuses, just silence. He replays the fight in his mind, trying to understand where the trap was set. He remembers the second round, when Ali went to the ropes and didn't leave. He remembers throwing punches that should have ended things. He remembers Ali's voice, needling him, mocking him, while his arms grew heavier and heavier. He remembers the 8th round, when his body simply stopped obeying. What Foreman doesn't realize yet, what will take him years to fully understand, is that he didn't just lose to a better boxer that night. He lost to a better thinker. He lost to someone who understood him more deeply than he understood himself. Ali had seen the flaw in Foreman's power, not a physical flaw, a conceptual one. Power that relies on intimidation cannot survive patience. Power that has never been tested but does not know what to do when the test goes long. Power that believes in its own mythology will always underestimate intelligence. George Foreman spent his entire career being told he was unstoppable. And because he was never stopped, he believed it. He confused dominance with inevitability. He thought the force of his punches was the only variable that mattered. Ali knew better. Ali had been underestimated his entire life. He'd been mocked for being pretty, dismissed for being loud, stripped of his title for refusing to fight a war he didn't believe in. He'd been told he was too old, too slow, too finished. And every time, he had turned underestimation into ammunition. He had built a career not on being invincible, but on being underestimated and then proving the world wrong in ways that made them question their own judgment. Foreman had no experience with this. He had never needed strategy because his power had always been enough. And so, when Ali took away his power not by being stronger, but by making strength irrelevant, Foreman had no answer. George Foreman would later say that the loss in Zaire changed him more than any other moment in his life. Not immediately, not in the days or weeks after, but slowly, over years, as he reflected on what had happened, he began to understand the lesson Ali had been trying to teach him all along. Foreman would retire from boxing after a loss to Jimmy Young in 1977, a fight where he found himself exhausted and confused, swinging at air while a lesser-known fighter outworked him. After that fight, Foreman had a spiritual experience. He became a preacher. He walked away from violence and found purpose in something larger than himself. But in interviews years later, when asked about Ali, Foreman's tone would change. There would be no bitterness, no ego, just respect, and something that looked a lot like regret. Not regret that he lost, regret that he had underestimated the man across from him. Regret that he had walked into that ring in Zaire believing that power was enough. Regret that it took losing everything in front of 60,000 people for him to understand what Muhammad Ali already knew. In one interview, decades after the fight, Foreman said, "Ali was smarter than me. It's that simple. I was stronger. I hit harder. But he was smarter, and in the end, that's what mattered." There is no anger in that statement, no defensiveness. Just the quiet acknowledgement of a truth that took years to accept. This is the real story of the rumble in the jungle, not the knockout, not the upset, but the moment when one of the most feared men in the world realized that he had been outsmarted, outhot, and outlasted by someone who understood that boxing is not just about who hits harder. It's about who thinks deeper, who prepares better, who turns their opponent's strength into their weakness. George Foreman didn't just lose a fight that night. He learned what it feels like to be out-evolved in real time. There is something deeply human about George Foreman's regret. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with tears or public apologies. It comes in the form of humility, in the way he speaks about Ali now, not as a rival, but as a teacher. in the way he rebuilt his life around service and faith instead of dominance and fear, in the way he acknowledges, without shame, that he was beaten by something he didn't understand at the time. Intelligence, preparation, and patience will always outlast raw power when power refuses to evolve. Ego is not strength, it is a blindness that prevents you from seeing what's really happening until it's too late. And the most dangerous opponent is not the one who hits hardest. It's the one who understands you better than you understand yourself. Muhammad Ali didn't just beat George Foreman. He showed him and the world that the mind is the ultimate weapon. That violence without strategy is just noise. That being underestimated is an advantage if you know how to use it. And George Foreman, to his credit, never forgot that lesson. He carried it with him for the rest of his life. He spoke about it with reverence. He let it reshape him into something softer, wiser, more human than the destroyer he had been in 1974. That night in Zaire, George Foreman lost to Muhammad Ali. But what stayed with him wasn't the loss, it was the lesson. There are moments in life where you realize, too late, that you were standing across from greatness and didn't see it for what it was. Moments where confidence turns into arrogance, and arrogance turns into a blindness that costs you everything. George Foreman had one of those moments in Zaire, and instead of letting it destroy him, he let it teach him. That's the quiet regret. Not the loss itself, but the understanding that comes after. The realization that someone saw through you before you even saw yourself. Muhammad Ali was a master of many things: speed, charisma, courage, but his greatest gift was his ability to see into people, to understand what made them dangerous and what made them vulnerable, to turn their strengths into traps. George Foreman walked into that trap, and he walked out a different man, not broken, changed, and maybe that's the real victory. If this story made you think differently about intelligence, power, and what it means to truly understand your opponent, let me know by hitting the like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology behind legendary moments in sports history. And leave a comment with your answer to this. Do you believe intelligence beats power, or only when power underestimates it?